So, Patrick, without further ado, thank you, sir, very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And I want to take it back before we get into the nuts and bolts of everything that's going on in Ukraine right now, because I know you've got some incredible stories that we've talked about privately that I hope I can get you to share with my audience today about what you've seen and experienced literally on the front lines of war there. I want to take it back to the very beginning because I remember talking to you on the phone in, I guess, 2022, right when this war broke out. And I remember you telling me that you just had to do something. You felt like you were called to help in some way. And a lot of us, including me, felt that way, but not a lot of people actually did anything about it. So can you take me back to that moment and what your initial emotions were when you saw everything that was going on over there and why you felt like you needed to be involved and help however you could?
Sure. When I saw the war unfolding, it just seemed so unjust that a country that was innocent was being invaded by the Russian Federation. My experience was having served in Vietnam as a combat veteran and being shot at by the North Vietnamese using Russian-made weapons. It had a special place in my heart for the Ukrainian people. And I followed it very closely. And because we run an NGO in the United States, we're the largest provider of law enforcement de-escalation training in the world. I felt maybe those services could be useful because they're military checkpoints, border security issues, other issues in reoccupied territories after the Russians are pushed out. I thought maybe some of those services would be helpful. The issue that I was going through was that it's very hard to get over there. It's not easy. You have to be affiliated with another organization, particularly in the beginning of the war.
Yeah.
And it was hard to find an organization which would sponsor or help you, or you could companion or partner with to get into the country. They wanted and needed money unless you had certain specialized skills. At the time, the other NGOs didn't recognize de-escalation as a critical skill. And I found that out when I got there for the first time, the end of summer, beginning of fall. Another NGO listened to me and my story and what I had to offer and wanted me to go with them. They set everything up so that I would have meetings throughout with fire, police, military, the churches, which are very strong over there, and others in the government. And we were very well received. In fact, we were shocked and surprised at how well we were received and what the demand was for what we had to offer. I was told before I went over there that one of the most critical factors that they're dealing with is post-traumatic stress disorder, that everybody has it. You don't have to be a soldier or a veteran. It's the entire civilian population. So they asked if we could put a package together and make a presentation. Back in the 80s, in fact, I was in law school at the time, I started working for the Veterans Administration as a combat readjustment counselor. And we dealt primarily with post-traumatic stress disorder. I studied it, I learned it. When I practiced law, I helped people get military retirements based on PTSD. I helped them get defense and criminal cases for PTSD. A number of other things, veterans benefits. And so I had some 40 years experience. In fact, in 2018, President Trump signed a law for 100% disabled veterans that I wrote. It was originally introduced as HR 164 through Congressman Gus Belarakis, and we lobbied about 4 years for that, and he signed that. So I had 40 years of experience working with PTSD and veterans issues. So when I went over there, I was well received because they wanted primarily that, and we started training people to become peer counselors. We couldn't certify people as therapists, but as peer counselors, most of the Ukrainians having seen war, been involved either as a civilian, a volunteer, or as a soldier, it was deemed very valuable. And we trained, probably 350 PTSD counselors.
Wow.
And we reported every time we went over and came back, we reported to the State Department. They were really pleased that we were doing that. And then evolved from there into other things.
So you have obviously the vast experience. You were a combat veteran in Vietnam, as you mentioned. You're a lawyer. You've got all this decades and decades of experience with post-traumatic stress and all that. But when it comes to Ukraine, even though you're much more connected than the average person would be, and you have a blueprint to know how to do it, you pretty much had to build all of this from scratch on the Ukraine side, right? You really had to start from the bottom and work your way up.
Yeah, we didn't know if they'd accept anything, want anything, need anything. They had the Russians breathing down their throat, attacking them every day on numerous fronts. They'd already occupied about 18% of the country. But we gave presentations over 2 days, about 150 people in each presentation. There were soldiers, chaplains, social workers, psychologists, medical doctors, firemen, people from law enforcement, and we were just met with open arms. There was more demand for more products that I wasn't ready to deliver at the time.
Yeah.
And we started developing programs, and it evolved into what it is today, which is a somewhat different looking animal.
Well, yeah, now, yeah, and you've gotten, I believe, is it 4 medals now from the Ukrainian military for?
Yeah, I've been awarded some decorations and citations for a lot of the work I did, mostly on the front.
Well, and to me, and I've told you this privately, but I want to say it publicly too, I think it's just one of the most incredible displays of a person's will that I've ever seen in any walk of life, whether it's business or humanitarian efforts or anything else, that you saw this, you knew you could do it, but you had to figure out how to do it, and you just did it. You just went in and you built all this in a relatively short period of time. And now here we are 3+ years later or so, and I believe you've deployed to Ukraine. Is it 15 times now? Is that?
I'm about to do the 15th deployment.
Yeah. So what was it like the first time that you touched down and you go through that process of getting into the country, number one, and you're meeting with the officials you're meeting with, and you're trying to find your placement there and how you can be of service?
Well, fortunately, I went with another NGO, and the president of that organization kind of led me by the hand and had all the meetings and everything set up. And then, although we parted ways after a couple more trips, we actually wound up again working together on other projects, trainings and setting up meetings, working on the front, bringing supplies into the troops, a number of other functions. But no, in the beginning, I didn't really know what I was doing or where I was going and where I'd be the next day. There's a lot of secrecy too.
Yeah.
You often aren't told what you're going to do until hours before the evening before for security reasons. So it was very helpful that Sean Sullivan got me in there and showed me the ropes the first couple times, and even brought me to the front where it was pretty tense. But it was just very helpful, and it evolved into probably half of my work is on the front, and the rest of the time in other bases and other locations with a strong military focus now.
Well, and now you've been, every time you go, my understanding is you get deeper in and more involved and more engaged with the military and on the ground. And I mean, you're giving speeches to troops, right? And you're training the frontline troop. You're in it to the fullest extent.
Well, we're in charge of military leadership for the Army right now. And any de-escalation that we deliver, for the police, military, because under martial law, police and military are kind of melded together. We kind of run that. We're in charge of that. We're the go-to guys, and our team brings those services. And we still do PTSD training. We're working with rape victims. Many of the women who were prisoners of war were raped numerous times,
Yeah.
frequently, and we're working on a center and some therapies and pulling a coalition together to get that done, as well as making trips to the front to help service the needs of the soldiers out there in several locations. So we do a lot.
Gosh, well, and that's the thing. A lot of people probably don't realize is that people in their 40s and 50s, if you don't remember World War II, we're used to wars being fought overseas. Even in wars that we're involved in, it's a different kind of war when they're literally trying to take the land that you live on, and it kind of makes everybody's a soldier in a way, right? I mean, everybody's dealing with PTSD to some extent, like you said.
Yeah, everybody. Soldiers, civilians, veterans, children, they're all involved. We did a leadership training in Kyiv, the capital, at a military academy, and the students were 15, 16, and 17 years old. These are kids. Everybody's got to look forward to a mobilization at some point in time. They're taking people out of banks, employees out of banks. Bus driver in Lviv was taken right off a bus with like 35 passengers and mobilized right then and there. It took a few hours before they got another driver in. So everybody is poised to go. Many of them don't want to go because the death rate is so high on the front. It's very difficult, and the Russians are advancing. It's slow, but they're advancing. Even though it's a drone war, they're still boots on the ground. They're taking territory, and the casualty rate is exceedingly high.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it says something about the will of the Ukrainian people, because a lot of people thought this war would last. Well, the famous quote was 2 weeks, right? I think was Zelensky said, somebody, I don't know if it was Putin or who said that, but and here we are 3+ years later, and they're still fighting honorably. What?
Yeah, Putin had said 72 hours.
70,
And,
that's right.
that happened because of the will of the Ukrainian people.
Yes, sir. Well, and I know there's only so many things that you can talk about, and I don't want to make it too somber of a mood here, because I really want to celebrate the will of the Ukrainian people and what you're doing, continue to do. But I know you've seen some pretty hard things over there. I mean, what can you share with us about some of the things that you've had to witness on the ground?
Well, Sean Sullivan, the person who brought me in the first time, brought me back, my second deployment, still in 2022. And we went to Avdiivka, which has now been taken over by the Russians. You can't go in there. We went in, we brought supplies, we brought material for the troops, supplies for the civilians who were living underground. To the east, we had the Russians shooting over the top of us. And to the west, we had the Ukrainians shooting at the Russians over the top of us. And during the day, a Russian drone spotted us, followed us. There were 4 vehicles. One was from Samaritan's Purse. And eventually they had us zeroed in. And over the course of about 20 minutes, they started sending missiles in one after another until they were almost right on top of us. And we had to leave. And now the city of Avdiivka, which was 30,000, is now held by the Russians. That was the first of a series of places that I'd been which became Russian held. I was in Bakhmut, fight that went on almost a year, got taken over by the Russians, and some other smaller cities close by, Chasiv Yar, down toward Zaporizhia in that area, and others. And our people, the people that we worked intimately with and were considered team members, we lost several of those, 5 or 6 of those, over the course of 3 years. And but many times we're warned what the latest in drone technology, drone defense. It's one of the first things we do on each of the deployments that we make. They tell us what to watch out for. how we may be able to defend ourselves, if at all, and where to go, where not to go. Some places we have to go regardless. And but we've had to sleep in areas where you have to sleep sitting up because there are rats that have been there because of decomposing soldiers that have been killed. And we've had to sleep outside in the winter in tents. So not only do you have to deal with the enemy, but sometimes the environment, which can be difficult and trying. And illness is a frequent problem. I've made 14 deployments, and 6 deployments I came back really sick, twice with pneumonia. And it's usually because of not sleeping in harsh conditions. Lack of sleep is probably the biggest thing. And for the team that I work with and run to a certain extent, many times with the travel and the conditions, you just can't sleep. It's just something you can't do. And you may go on a 2-week period of time, you may go five days without sleep. And eventually your immune system breaks down and you get sick. And hopefully it's not so serious that you're hospitalized. But you've got to deal with the enemy, the drones. There are frequent attacks, even if you're in the capital, with millions of people living there. It takes an hour and a half to drive from one side to the other. There's still attacks. People are dying. This past week, they had the largest attack since the war started. More drones and missiles came in than any other point during the war. And you just have to deal with it, understand how to keep yourself safe and the people around you. And the farther you go to the east, the worse it gets. The conditions are worse, both living conditions and the frequency of attacks. You just have to be prepared, know who to rely on, how to travel safe, smart, timing, types of vehicles, places to stay. I think it was in deployment 13. I was near Guarnieri, and they put me in a refugee camp because they said it was the safest. And I really didn't like the conditions at all. So I said, take me to a hotel the next day. I stayed at a hotel, excuse me, and it was 3 or 4 days later, the hotel took a direct hit. It's still closed. Months later, still closed. Took a direct hit. Warned, and it's just that dangerous, especially public conveyances, hotels, meeting places. And if they see you're there, they'll target you. They have spotters. The Russians have spotters.
Yeah, and I would imagine you're kind of a target to some extent, right? Because you're an American coming over, making an impact. I would imagine that you're on their radar, I would assume.
Yeah, we're considered high value targets when we go over there, especially with what I do, because we have groups of people come to get trained or to facilitate things or planning sessions. Not so much in the capital or other major cities like Lviv or Kharkiv, even Kharkiv actually, because it's so close to Russia. It's like 20 miles from Russia. But in the other locations on the front, it's if you meet, the Russian spotters will see, and you've only got a few hours before you have to finish up and get out of there. They're not going to send a missile in that costs $250,000 if there are 2 or 3 people in a facility. But if they see 30 people or 40 people and high value targets like police officers or officers in the military, you're a prime target, and they warn you. First of all, they tell you at the last minute when the meeting's going to take place or the training or whatever it may be. And then you get transported in, told how much time you have before it's going to be too dangerous. I did a training in a particular location, which I'll leave the name out just for security reasons. And we were told the night before. I wasn't told when I was going to be picked up. Just a surprise. I was just told to be ready in the morning. Went in. We got an hour into it. There was an attack. We had to go into the basement. 3 hours later, we had another attack. They had zeroed in on our position, and we were told we had to leave the vicinity. and there were about 100 of us that had to just run, literally run. And the spotter called it off. Nobody in the building. No sense in wasting a few $100,000 on a weapon. An hour later, we were back in the building. Same thing happened again. Another close call. We had to run and get out of there, and they called off the attack. But they did use the missiles elsewhere in that particular general vicinity where there were people, and the attacks were successful. So
Gosh.
you're constantly strategizing and being warned. And fortunately, the intelligence is good, and the U.S. intelligence agencies supply a lot of information that's very valuable that we use, and it's very effective. And I'll just leave it at that. That they've helped me, and a lot of the work that I do become possible because of knowing who's where and who's watching what, and when things might happen to keep us safe.
Yeah. Well, and it's been interesting too for me, knowing you on a personal level and getting to hear a little bit about what you've experienced over there. And I'm just speaking for myself here, so feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like a lot of the stuff, for whatever reason, that's actually going on the ground over there doesn't really get fully covered by the national media. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a different animal over there on the news, and I watch it when I'm in the United States. It's a watered down version. Attacks may happen in certain cities. They'll name the location. They'll show something burning, but they don't realize that people go out there during those attacks, men, women, civilians, and soldiers and first responders, and they're given intelligence as to what the possibility of another attack is, whether they have to go in or not, what they have to do. And they're in there putting out fires, getting attacked again, picking up body parts, putting people in body bags over days. Moving, we had to move a body the last time I was there at 1:30 in
Wow.
the morning because it was misplaced. But there are teams of people that I work with that do that. We were asked once to get a refrigerator tucker. They had almost 1,000 bodies in the Bakhmut area, and that's just part of it. And then there's constant drone attacks. There's a lot of facilities that are doing work as we speak, in hundreds of locations in Ukraine that are doing work for the war, and they're civilians that are working underground in their homes on things that I'm not privileged to say for security reasons, and people taking chances and running risks that can only be told after the war is over. But when you're on the ground and you see and hear the number of people that have a family member that's either dead, lost a limb, or is in a hospital or captured, it's profound. Everybody knows somebody who's a friend, a relative, a neighbor who's dead or injured, and or in the war, struggling to stay alive. I did a training at a secret location. Let's just put it that way. On my 14th deployment, and soldier came up, great guy, humble, quiet, talking to me about what he did and when he was going to deploy again. And I asked him the places he'd been, and he described this situation. He pulled up his shirt. He showed me a scar about 6 inches long. Then he showed me his chest. There was another wound there. And his shoulder, another wound there.
Wow.
Different occasions, different locations. And each time he went back to fight again. Wounded, disabled. I've taught classes at bases training, and soldiers would come and go during the breaks, limping in and out of the room. And they were just waiting for their deployment orders to go back to the front. Some of the locations were on the front, but not in the immediate, what they call the 0 point or the red zone, where it's intimate with the enemy. And it's sad. It's humbling
Yeah.
because People say, "Oh, it's great what you do. Look what you're doing." It's nothing compared to what they go through. It's nothing compared to the courage these guys have, the sacrifices they make. Some of them are depressed, but they go out every day and continue to fight. I've slept outside in tents with the soldiers a few times. It's nothing. They have to do it every day in the winter with
Yeah.
snow and ice outside. For me, it's nothing because I get to come back to the United States.
Yeah.
Uh,
And they're
this,
doing it so they still have a home to go back to, hopefully, at the end of it all. Hopefully.
it's amazing the sacrifices for them. It's just a way of life. People go in their backyards. There's pieces of shrapnel from missiles and drones that have been shot down and weaponry. Daily you hear explosions, things going off. They have to go to the shelters, and this is their way of life. When you go over there a lot, you start to get used to it, used to the sirens, used to the regimen, the food that's different. It may not be as good. Certainly the bathroom facilities they get as primitive as you can get when you leave the major cities. It's difficult, but it's their way of life. They live it. They live in the cold. They live wet. They live in fear of their lives. It's not seen on TV, but when you're on the front, it's there all the time. You've got to limit the amount of time you're outside, not undercover, not moving quickly, and the war's changing. Drone defense is evolving every few months. It's completely different. It's completely changed. The technology is advanced, and the Russians and the Ukrainians are trying to keep pace with each other's advancements and innovations. And this is life. You've
Puts
got
it in
to,
perspective when we're worried about whatever we're worried about here, doesn't it? Yeah.
yeah, knowing and keeping in your mind how to put a tourniquet on with one hand in case your other arm is blown off or badly wounded. And those briefings we get when we land in country on first aid are in your mind all the time. You head toward the front. And they live it. It's not like me. I come and go. They're there. They stay, and there are always people that are trying to do more. And so when you come and you bring information, new training, new methodologies from the United States, your time is day and night. It's usurped by them. If you're not training all day long or out with the troops doing something, having to go somewhere with them to do something, let's just put it that way, at night they've got you and need you for information, insights, help, morale building, perspective on the United States and its position in the world arena relative to Ukraine. It's a lot of work, but it's nothing compared to what they go through.
Yeah. Well, and I wanted to ask you about that because I know being over there as much as you have, and I'm sure being inspired by what you've seen from these brave men and women that are doing this every day too. Can you talk to me a little bit about some of the individual relationships that you've built over there, or any individual people or soldiers or whoever it may be that you've been inspired by?
Well, I've met people at so many different levels, whether it was political, military, or volunteers that go in and out of the front, and you're just so impressed by what people do. My friend Victor, who I try to see every time I go over there and work with, he goes in and out of the front every day. He and his wife, yeah, every day. He's been wounded numerous times. People want to bring materials into the front, but they're afraid. He goes in, brings their vehicle, because many times he doesn't have a vehicle because it's been destroyed, and he'll bring their vehicle back full of bullet holes.
Gosh.
And it's perpetual. Sometimes he has to, when the floods took place in Zaporizhia, he had to duck underwater when they were shooting at him. And one time he came up and he got a round hit a building behind him, and the shrapnel came back and cut his head open. There's actually a video of that. He has just done so many things, so many times. Had tanks shoot at him when he runs from building to building, trying to deliver supplies in Kherson. And it's
like a movie for us here, you know, but it's real life for them over there. Yeah, it's
amazing what he goes through, and yet he's got a sense of humor. These guys will do anything. The people I work with on the front, the soldiers, and even my friend Victor, they'll do anything. There's nothing they're not afraid to do, and actually, their families too. It just runs in the extended family. Grandmothers, mothers, wife. Many of them have such deeds of heroism that they engage in on a daily basis. And there are other people. I mean, we've had people, for instance, in the church that I frequently stay in and work from, because I always have a facility when I need to train people or have meetings. It's like on call anytime I need it. They send people to the front once or twice a week. And I've ridden with them. There's some difficult areas, let's just put it that way, and seen videos of them and what they've done. One fellow's name is Yuri, went out once to Kherson. He didn't come back. He was trying to rescue some people, brought supplies out, was bringing people back out, and he stayed because the vehicle was full. He stayed, and a missile came in and took him out. And I was having lunch with Bishop Rashasinski at the church when we got the call that Yuri just gotten killed by a missile, and 3 kids, veteran himself. These are the heroes that are just great. Guy was such a sweet, kind man, but just volunteered and would take all the risks that other people were frequently afraid to take, and he paid for it with his life. And there are just so many others that have been working hard, paying the price. And some of them, it doesn't matter what they have to do. They're just going to say yes and go. And then again, in all honesty, there are those that really don't want to go and they don't want to serve for good reason. The death rate is so high. I spoke to a commander in Bakhmut. I was in Bakhmut about 2 years ago. And one of the commanders telling me how much he hates his job. And he started with 200 men. He was down to 60 in about 7 months.
wow.
And he just hated what he did. But he said, I can't stop. I can't quit. It's what I do. And then again, when you're out there with those guys, it's a brotherhood. You share so much because you're there and for the same reason. When I go, I'm for the same reason that they're there, just to help out, whatever it takes. And you could be riding along and they'll in a military vehicle and going through holes that were made by artillery shells or rockets, and just driving at breakneck speed, and the music's on full blast, and you're smashing your head against the ceiling, and everybody's singing, and trying to go through cornfields to avoid the mines, and people are happy and waiting to get a warm meal, and it's a brotherhood and a camaraderie that it's just beyond compare. You can't replace it.
Yeah, you really can't replicate that any other way, can you?
No, last experience by me in Vietnam, and I look forward to seeing those folks, mostly men, but women too, that are just, they'll do anything for their country. And I was riding in from Poland, And I just gone past Lviv and I was on my way to Kyiv. It was about a 10-hour ride. There was a guy in front of me, and a seat. We're facing each other. And he told me he was 82 years old, had been an English teacher. And he said that I'm old, I'm tired, and I'm weak. But if I saw a Russian soldier right now, I would do my best to kill him. And
Yeah.
it's like, good God, the guy's 82 years old and he has this fighting spirit. And what have we got to complain about when you have people like that that are willing to do so much for their country?
Yeah.
And pardon me for using such strong language and words, but that's how it is that's how people talk, even in the religious institutions, the churches and synagogues. It's a struggle to live, and the cost is borne because of Russian aggression, and there's no other way to express it.
Yeah. No, and I'm thankful that you are, and I'm thankful you're sharing it with me and my audience, because I think it's important, partially because it's really not covered to the full extent on the national news, and partially because it's easy for us in America here with the cozy, cushy lifestyles that a lot of us have to tune it out or make it political. But at the end of the day, these are real human beings, and this is real life and death. And people aren't hearing it anywhere else, so they need to know what's going on, because everybody can support protecting human life and what they're going through. I wanted to ask you, and this is probably a good time to do it, but how does this compare to your experience with Vietnam? Because as I listen to you talk, and I'm just thinking, and you mentioned even, obviously we had a draft at that time here in our country, and they're pulling people in everywhere they can over there, and there's a lot of similarities, it seems like. But how does it compare for you with your two experiences?
Well, in Vietnam, the Americans supported the war. The American military supported the war with arms, ammunition, food, supplies, logistics, everything you needed to prosecute that war. Over there, it's a hand-to-mouth situation where they're struggling for everything they get. When I bring medical supplies over, it's a gift from God. I brought a couple laptops over the last time I was there. They needed them for planning, logistics, drone training. It's not like the United States where the support is there, an unlimited supply of materials. And over there, it's highly dependent on the rest of the world, on Europe and the United States, the Western countries. When I'm there and they see United States, see it on my uniform here, which I wear when I'm over there every day. If I didn't wear a uniform, I'd be the only person on the bases and facilities I go to that wasn't in uniform. They say, we see the United States when we see you in that uniform. We feel we have hope that America's here. We have some support. And what they do is give you everything they've got. If you're on a train, moving somewhere in the country or on your way in, they'll go into their suitcases and take gifts out, their food, their drinks, everything. They'll try to buy things for you, pay for things for you because of the appreciation they have, because they don't have the assistance and support that we had in Vietnam. Everything was there if you wanted it. Ammunition, supplies, food, everything you needed. So, big sense of gratitude. And for me, I just say, listen, please don't thank me. This is a privilege to be here among people like you.
Yeah.
And I am one with you. You're the reason I come. They appreciate it so much. Soldiers will take patches off there. This patch here came from a unit, one of the last units that I served with over there.
Wow.
A few weeks ago. They take pieces of their uniform, patches, some of the weaponry, small weapons, and my home is full of gifts and pieces of their life that show their appreciation. They'll do paintings. They'll have their family knit something, give you clothing, anything to show how much they appreciate. With the little bit that they have, these people are poor. I pay translators about $100 a day, and that's like 3 days' pay.
Yeah.
$100 a day is like 3 days' pay. And they're not wealthy. They need money, support, material, and
I was going to bring that up too because it's kind of funny. I was going to bring it up earlier in the conversation that a lot of people would watch this and wonder why are you doing this, and they don't even know too yet because I haven't brought it up, but you're paying on your own dime for most of these, if not all of these. I know there's some small donations, and now you've got the affiliation with the Department of Defense, but these have pretty much all been on your own dime, so you're paying money to go over there. A lot of people would say, why would you do this? But the cool thing is, I think just listening to you talk the last 20, 30 minutes here, it's pretty obvious why you're doing it. You can see how much you care, and you can see how connected to it you are into helping these people.
these people sometimes will try to have a little celebration in the evening with music and food, and they speak about their own experiences. And it's so heart-wrenching that if you don't feel something when you're among them, I don't know what kind of person you'd be that you aren't touched by this and feel a sense of loyalty, commitment, that you should sacrifice more, that you aren't doing enough. And if you aren't touched by that, there's something wrong with you. It's a matter of going over for the right reason and experiencing it and what they're going through to save their country, their family, and the losses they've taken are just incredible. And if it doesn't affect somebody and make them want to come back and do more. And many people go over there for that reason. They want to be a part of the good fight, participate in the sacrifices, whether it's for religious or moral or personal reasons. The people that I work with are great people that just feel a sense of commitment, and I can't say enough about them, men and women that go over and do this, not just the Ukrainian. I'm talking about the people from Western Europe that come in and don't get much or anything and have to pay like me to do it, to make sure it gets done. And listen, I have people in my organization here in the United States that say, I'm not going to donate any money and I'm not going. I say, thank you for telling me. You're honest. I can understand why you wouldn't want to go. It's risky and can be expensive.
I keep teasing you, but I can't get, this might be our public opportunity to pitch Kelly on letting me go with you, but I'm kind of kidding, but anyway.
Yeah. Well, hopefully at some point in time, she'll say, she'll give you the nod and let you go. There's certainly a lot of areas that are relatively safe, but you can still contribute a lot. Places near the border with Poland, Lviv, major city, they need help. The people get deployed from Lviv, go to the front, come back. They need services and counseling, therapy, health. As I indicated, we're building a rape center for women. We're getting those services established. It's in a safe area, which it should be, obviously. They're a refugee center for children, beautiful facilities that are being built and worked on. So the kids who suffered or lost their family members or parents will have a place to go. Not all the young people have gone to other countries. Many of them are still there. And so there's a lot that can be done in the country, and certainly medical services as well as psychological stuff.
And well, I'll just say this for myself because you literally haven't brought it even up to me, and we haven't talked about because I didn't bring it up either. But I'm just going to say for my audience here, I'm going to find a way. I don't even know if a link exists right now, but we'll try to create one if it doesn't. If you'd like to support these efforts, I can't imagine why you wouldn't. This is an American soldier that I'm talking to here, a combat veteran that fought for our country, who's now in the depths with this war in Ukraine and providing aid and spending money and time and putting his own life at risk to do so. I think the very least that we can do is contribute to that if we're in a position we're able to do so. So that's not why we're doing this, but that's just Stephan Piscano saying if you're in a position to support, I'll put the link up, and I hope that many in my network do, because again, I understand the war has somewhat gotten politicized here, but these are real human beings that are dying and being raped and going through watching family members wounded and all the things that Patrick's talking about here that they're experiencing on a daily basis. And anything that we can do to help with that, I think it's a blessing to have the opportunity to do so. So, Patrick, so talk to me. A lot's happened and lots been in the news the last few months, even in the mainstream media. What is the mood and what is the situation on the ground right now? Is it getting worse in 2025? Isn't there things improving at all?
Battle conditions are rough and getting worse, mostly because of drone warfare. The technology advanced over the last few years to the extent that people aren't safe on the front if they're exposed. If they can be seen from the sky, there's a high likelihood that themselves or their vehicles will be attacked by a drone, whether it's a kamikaze or a missile. And so the situation has gotten more intense. Some areas are worse than others. All depends. But the Russians are advancing. They've taken 2 or 3% more of the country since the war started. It's less a conventional war as it was in the beginning. Technology is really, really the key, and the Russians are making advances, which you may read about or hear about on the internet, YouTube, isn't necessarily what's going on the ground, where you may see the Russians are taking a beating. No, both sides are taking a beating. The Russians may have more losses, but the Ukrainians aren't far behind. One of the significant differences is that the Russians have a broader supply of personnel that can be mobilized than the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians are running out. Many of the people I serve with are already wounded badly, shouldn't be fighting anymore, have volunteered to stay on board so that they can continue, just because their heart is in the battle. And but they're running low on people, and the mobilization age has been lowered recently, down to 25, and they're going to go lower and lower, it's my understanding. I can say that it looks like the war isn't going to end soon, on one hand, but on the other hand, negotiations are underway. There's talks about possible ceasefires. They may not necessarily result in anything strong, meaningful, acceptable, but at least that's started over the last few months.
Yeah.
As far as morale is concerned, about a year ago, there was some talk about maybe the United States was going to cut funding. Congress had some positions that were concerned about whether the money was being used wisely or corruption was steering some of the supplies or money in other directions. Certainly that happens, but the Ukrainian people and the soldiers on the ground were really concerned and worried as to whether they were going to get cut off. They got cut off by the United States. This war is going to end fairly quickly. and not in a positive way. So when the Trump administration took over, there was both hope and concern. On the one hand, Trump is a strong person who said he could end the war quickly. Most of us thought that that would not happen, that it would take some time. On the other hand, Trump is conservative with spending and using our military overseas, particularly wars. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. The Ukrainian people are concerned. They're worried about what Trump's position is going to be. They don't trust anything Putin says, nor do I. And in a few words, one could say that most Ukrainians feel they've suffered so much and lost so much already that they don't want to give up any territory.
They don't want to lose more. Yeah.
They don't want to give up their territory. They've lost too much. That's probably the simplest, most succinct way to state the Ukrainian position. It's essentially what President Zelensky feels as well. Putin, on the other hand, feels the opposite. He feels Ukrainian is theirs. 55 years or so ago, it was Russian. But the area of the Donbass all the way up to Kharkiv, and down through Kherson, the southern reaches, were primarily Russian speaking, and they should be under the jurisdiction of Russia. And it seems like that's the least he'd want to settle this war. And that's completely unacceptable from Ukrainians' point of view. I spent some time with the chief economic advisor to Zelensky, and it appears much of the war is going to be determined by economics, by how long the Russians can sustain this war with low oil prices. The Russia needs about $60 a barrel to break even. They're only a little above $60 a barrel right now on the world market. So they're not making much money, and they're running on a war economy. And their oil, most of their oil is going to India, and they're dealing in rupees. They're getting paid in rupees, which doesn't have much value on the world market. So they're suffering an economic pinch. Most of their production isn't going into expanding the GDP. It's going into Ukraine. And they're suffering, and that decline is continuing. And the longer it goes, the better the chances are for Ukraine. Ukraine has outside support. The amount of support Ukraine gets as opposed to Russia is about 13-1. When you factor in all the European countries, the Western countries, Canada, the United States, and others. So the economic advantage is certainly in favor of Ukraine, but it's not immediate. It takes time. And Russia has the manpower in the short term.
Yeah.
I guess we're going into the midterm now, but Russians still have a lot of people that they can conscript to go in and fight.
Then it just becomes how many people on their side are they willing to sacrifice for Putin's whatever it is.
Well, yeah, this is it. And on the positive side, the people they're conscripting don't get much basic training, a few weeks, and then they're in the field, don't know how to conduct themselves in war, and they get killed or injured a lot sooner and are taken out of the field. So it's a constant turnover. There's much more turnover of personnel, and people that they're replaced by don't have the experience. The Ukrainians have a fairly much more significant basic training. I've been in those bases. I've helped in the training, and it's more extensive than what the Russians get. Some of the problems that the Ukrainians still have are the old Soviet style of leadership, which we're trying to get rid of so that they operate more efficiently and morale is better. But by and large, Ukrainians have a little better training. They have a slight edge in technology because they're using Western weapons, and the drones they're using are slightly more advanced than the Russians. But the Russians are keeping pace, sometimes advancing beyond the capability of the Ukrainians, and the Ukrainians have to catch up as well. I'm fairly involved with and familiar with the Ukrainian drone program and what they're doing, and I get briefed on it when I go over there, so I kind of see it firsthand, and get familiar with it, and have actually operated drones. Not to any great level of proficiency. I'm not good at it at all, but I've just to keep me in the information loop so that I can be more effective on the ground over there. They've given me those exposures as well as other aspects of the war that should be beyond the scope of what I should say during this meeting.
Well, I think we'll probably have to edit this out too, but you got a special honor on this last deployment. Are we allowed to discuss your signature?
My signature. Oh, we better leave that out.
Okay.
Better
All right.
leave that out. But
We'll leave that out then.
I participated in the literally on the front line in the red zone, and we'll have to leave that for the history books when they're written and this is over, and it's safe for me to discuss some of my other activities, because I do work in sensitive areas and sensitive bases with code names, and but some of it's fun. It's not all miserable and depressing, and we do have moments of levity, and that one will have to go in the history books for my own safety and the safety of the
Fair
people
enough.
that
Fair
some
enough.
of the things I did and the people around me do frequently. So we'll get to that in the future.
All right. Fair enough. Well, in closing, as we wrap up here, and we're recording this the day before Memorial Day, and I'm hoping that I can get this live quicker than usual, get it live tomorrow on Memorial Day, because I want to salute you, my friend, for your, I guess almost 50 years of service here now, and your continued service, and then the great people that are fighting in Ukraine that we're highlighting here today, first and foremost. But in closing, what's your message to us here on the ground in America, and what's your message to everybody in Ukraine that you're still fighting alongside of?
Message to America is continue to support Ukraine. The world depends on this. Ukraine goes, Poland could be next, Estonia, Latvia, these other border states, they're worried. Europe is really worried. Putin is not somebody to take lightly. He's aggressive. He's an intelligence officer that's been successful. And we've got to take it seriously and continue to support them. The brave people that are doing this now for us, certainly they're doing it for their own country as well. But they're the bulwark that we have. They're that barrier we have to further Russian expansion. And we need to continue to support them, and any of the organizations, not just mine, but any of the others that are fighting. And to the people of Ukraine, I praise you. God bless you. And Slava Ukraine, which means glory to Ukraine.
Beautiful. Well, thank you again for doing this, my friend. I really appreciate it. And
Thank you for having me.
I'll just close with this too, guys. If you want to get updates on the Foreign Directorate's progress that Patrick leads and all his efforts and what's actually going on the ground in Ukraine, you can subscribe to their YouTube channel, which I believe is just the Foreign Directorate on YouTube. You can go to the website. Can you give the website, Patrick? Do you mind?
Yeah, there's a link that gets you to the Foreign Directorate through its NDTC Center, NDTC Center, those two S's.com, ndtccenter.com, and there's a link to the International Division. The Foreign Directorate is in there. If anybody wants to donate, Stephan will have an instrumentality to be able to do that.
And I'll put all these links. Yes, sir. Yeah. Well, and I'll put all these links in the description here, you guys, for everybody watching this on YouTube, and we'll put it in the podcast links as well. And again, I'm grateful. I've donated a bit. I'm going to donate some more when I get it set up to do so today, hopefully, and encourage you to join us in that as well. But Patrick, thank you again. Have a great Memorial Day, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Take care.